I've been collecting CDs for over 30 years now, and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Some were expensive, some were embarrassing, and some I still think about today. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Aaron, and I talk a lot about CD collecting, CD players, and more here on YouTube. And today I want to open up and share some mistakes that I've made while piecing together my CD collection over the years, with the hope that you can avoid making the same mistakes and save yourself some time and money. Let's start with my most embarrassing mistake first. I'm going to get this most embarrassing mistake out of the way first because I think a lot of people are going to identify with this. None of us are perfect, especially those of us who have been collecting physical media for as long as I have, or even longer. And the embarrassing mistake is simply that I didn't take better care of my CD collection when I first started collecting. Now, keep in mind, when I first started collecting CDs, it was like in the 90s, maybe late 80s, probably late 80s. And I was like a young kid or a teenager. And I really didn't take care of them when I was a teenager because I don't know, these just kind of felt invincible. Even though you could scratch them, a lot of times they would still play. But I was taking these in cars. I was taking them on trips with a portable disc player. I would just do that terrible thing where I would just stack the CDs. I wouldn't put them back in the cases, you know what I mean? They would just stack up on top of my home stereo system, and I would just grab them in and out. I had like a 5-disc CD player, and it was just the constant moving around. I was letting friends borrow them. They weren't taking care of them, and they were bringing them back to me scratched up. It just didn't seem like at that time in my life that I needed to take care of physical media because it seemed to be so easily replaceable. I really didn't know that we would end up wanting to get it all back. And so that's my most embarrassing mistake, is just not taking care of them. I actually found a box of CDs that I have in storage, and I'm looking through these, and they're all just in terrible shape. I mean, great titles: Sonic Youth, Rocket from the Crypt, Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains, and Buzzcocks. I mean, hey man, I like your taste. But you'll notice that most of these don't have a cover. And so my biggest first embarrassing mistake is not taking better care of really any part of the CD ownership. And I've definitely changed that now and take really great care of my CDs. But back then, I just never did. And the fact that these don't have covers actually leads me to my second mistake. The reason why none of those CD cases have covers is because I thought it would be a good idea to get a binder. Remember these? I mean, we all had these growing up, depending on what age you were. And this is where you would take your CDs and you would, put them in here, like so. And you would just put the CD in there and you would take it out of the case. Well, here's the problem. This binder, it's just not good. I think it's supposed to hold, I don't know how many CDs it's supposed to hold, but guess what? The whole thing broke and fell apart. And I have not had the time or energy to go back and take all of these CDs out of here and put them back in the cases. So I think this was a mistake, taking all of my CDs out of the case, putting them into this binder. There's going to be a lot of people out there who absolutely love using these binders, but I've just never had a great experience. This isn't the first one that I've had go bad on me. And then I just look at all these cases and I'm like, I should put all my CDs back, and this ripped years ago and I still haven't done it. So I think my mistake is trying to take an item of physical media and make it more conveniently stored through something cheap like this. Look at this string. This is just, the whole thing is terrible. And now I got to go back and put all of them back. That's a big mistake I wish that I hadn't made. I wish I had just kept all of the cases, CDs, and covers intact. There was a time in the 90s, late 90s, I was in college, and it's kind of weird to remember, but vinyl records, brand new sealed vinyl records, were cheaper to buy at a record store than CDs. Now, I'm not talking about going to your used record store and finding a bunch of David Bowie and The Clash and The Police records for $3.99. Those were all used records. I bought a lot of those too. But you could still go buy like a brand new Modest Mouse album on vinyl for cheaper than it cost on CD. Because at that time, CDs were like $18.99, $19.99. They were really expensive. And the vinyl might be $12.99. That's how I got into collecting vinyl, to be honest with you, is going to the store, realizing I couldn't afford the CD while I was in college, and buying the vinyl copy instead. So once I began doing that, I really became a vinyl nerd and started really building out my collection. And that's when I really started understanding that it might have some sort of monetary value to it. And I really took a lot of time to catalog it in Discogs. That also helped me stop from buying multiple copies of the same record. But I never took the time to put my CD collection into Discogs. Now, granted, back in the 90s, Discogs wasn't around that I know of where I would be able to catalog it. But once even I got to where I started cataloging my vinyl collection, which I did mostly during the pandemic, I never took the time to even go back through all my old CDs and put them in Discogs. Now, Discogs CD cataloging is kind of a pain in the butt, I'll be honest with you. If you want to get really, really granular and find the matrix code, it's often buried way down here, like somewhere right around here, and it is really hard to see. You often have to get like a flashlight and like a magnifying glass to find the information if you need to know the exact information. I've given up on that. I've started cataloging CDs as I buy them now. I just scan the barcode in Discogs, and if it's not really worth a lot of money, I just save whichever one looks like the most convenient, and it's mostly in an effort to keep me from buying the same CD over and over again. But I have so many CDs, all of these in this binder, they're not cataloged at all, and I still have plenty that aren't in there either. And so I wish I had started doing that sooner, but at least I'm doing it going forward, and at some point, hopefully I'll go back and be able to get all of these cataloged in Discogs as well. Real quick, it's worth mentioning that I not only love collecting CDs, but I also run a small business that buys and sells physical media like vinyl records, CDs, cassettes, and more, and I offer them for sale online via Discogs. If you'd be interested in shopping my Discogs store, you can do so by clicking on the link in the first pinned comment, and that will show you what I have available for sale at this time. I'm always updating the store. Anything that you order from there gets packed and shipped directly from me, and any sales go to further support this channel. So check it out. Maybe you might find something great for your collection. Every time I post a video about CDs, somebody comes in the comments and starts yelling about disc rot. And it's like, disc rot, you got to stop buying CDs. They're all going to rot. They're all going to be unplayable. And I don't know, it's sort of this weird like fear that has started to spread amongst like CD buyers and CD collectors that all CDs are going to rot. It kind of reminds me of like in The Simpsons when some rumor starts getting spread and that lady always says, won't somebody please think of the children? It's like, won't somebody please think of the disc rot? Here's my experience with disc rot. I have bought hundreds, maybe even close to 1,000 CDs in over the last 30 years. And I have 2 examples of where I may have encountered some sort of disc rot. So if you're freaking out about the idea that all your CDs are going to rot and be unplayable, I don't think that's the case. I think a mistake that can be made is to stop buying CDs because they're going to rot. Or another mistake is just to not look at the CD and see if you can identify some sort of rot tendency, which from what I can tell is almost like if you look at the disc, it's like a milky white sort of, it almost looks like there's a fungus in there that's rotted. But even if you're really good at identifying disc rot, it still can bite you in the butt. I've got 2 CDs here, a Rilo Kiley CD and Joni Mitchell Blue. And for some reason, this Rilo Kiley CD, it's got like a gold tint to it. It does have one mark on the back, but nothing that shouldn't keep it from playing at all. And I have a lot of CD players. I've tested this in multiple CD players, and it just doesn't even load. Like the table of contents doesn't even load. Nothing reads on this disc. I don't know. It looked fine to me, so I don't know if it's rotted or what. The other one is Joni Mitchell. Now, I actually replaced the CD I had, but I bought a used copy at a store. It looked absolutely great, and I played it on multiple CD players, and halfway through the second song on every CD player, it would just stop playing altogether. So I guess maybe that one had rotted as well. But keep in mind that I think a mistake that people can make is that they think disc rot is rampant amongst all CDs. Of all the ones I bought, I've only had issues with these 2. It's always a bummer when it happens, but don't get too panicked that there's this epidemic of disc rot out there and that they're all going to rot away. So many CDs that I bought over the years still work and sound great. Another mistake that I've made over the years is really more of a mental one, and that is assuming that the really only way you can discover interesting new music in a record store is by buying it on vinyl. And I think a lot of this comes from sort of this ethos of crate digging. And you've got all these producers digging through records and finding these $1 to $2 albums that no one's ever heard of, and they're sampling them and they're coming up with all this cool stuff, and they're discovering this great music that was just forgotten about or maybe was never popular in the first place. And it's all because of this vinyl record. And I used to be that way for years. I would just never think that I could discover new music by looking through the CD section. And that has really changed recently. I have spent a lot of time shopping through the 99-cent and the like super cheap CD sections, and I have found some really cool music. This is like an acoustic guitar album from Phil Keaggy. I actually knew who Phil was, but it's just a great laid-back acoustic guitar album. I paid 99 cents for it. Pop this on a Saturday morning after a long week of work and listen to it while drinking coffee, and it's great. How about Luis Bonfa's Nonstop to Brazil? 99 cents. Just a fun little bossa nova type album. I think I talked about these in another video, but the Bad Plus is a great sort of jazz trio. I paid $2.99 for it, and they have a great cover of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's just more modern jazz that's kind of cool. And I talked about this one recently, this Chris Ferris and Paul Voudouris Passages album. I paid 99 cents for it. It's sort of this weird electronic new age album to listen to. But I think what the point I'm trying to get across is it can be a mistake to think that you got to go crate digging to find music that's been forgotten about, or that needs to be reissued, or that's interesting to listen to. The same music exists on CDs. I think people just undervalue finding it on CD. And look, at the end of the day, there are some CDs that were released without a vinyl version ever made, and they're still not on streaming. So it's still a cool way to go out there. So don't think crate digging, looking for vinyl is the only way to find great new music. You can also do so with cheap CDs. One of the things I've realized making videos here on YouTube about CDs is that there is a community of CD collectors out there that I think feels overlooked or underserved by those of us talking about physical media items on YouTube. And most people, I think, tend to lean towards talking about vinyl records. And I think that's fine. I'm a huge vinyl collector, but I still have a love and appreciation for CDs. So I like talking about both here on my channel. And while I was thinking about mistakes I've made, one of them is another sort of mindset mistake, which is that everyone tends to think that vinyl records is where the money is at. That's the collection you should build, and that you should buy all this vinyl and put it away, and someday it's going to be worth a ton of money, and you're going to be able to sell it all off, and it will have appreciated just like you put money in the stock market, or you've got to buy this insanely rare first press for $300. That's the only way to go. That's the only kind of music you should own. That's all that's valuable. And I'll be honest with you, I never thought that CDs were valuable. I just never did. And then I started doing some research and started realizing that there's a lot of valuable CDs out on the marketplace. And it just comes to the fact that some of them aren't available on streaming, or that they're just hard to find and people want to collect them. This is a great example. This is The Mollusk by Ween. I have owned multiple copies of this CD. I usually find it for $10 or less. I paid $6.99 for this one. The previous one I owned of this had the gold promotional stamp on there because it was a promo copy. I sold it for $62. I'm not kidding. And this one I paid $6.99 for it. After I sold that CD though, I actually really love this album, and I have a copy of it on vinyl. And after I sold it, I was like, man, I regret selling that CD. I wish I had kept it. And I don't know, however many months later, 6 months later, I found another copy. This one's a little scratched up. It plays through fine. So I'm not even really sure how I would price this if I wanted to sell it, but I'm going to keep this copy. But looking on Discogs right now, if you want to buy this CD, there's 11 copies available, and the cheapest one is $51.72. The median price is $50.86, and the highest it's ever sold is $89. CDs can be collectible. They can be worth a lot of money. I've made a lot of videos here on YouTube showing this. So a common mistake is to think that these aren't valuable like vinyl records, and that's just not the case. A lot of the mistakes I mentioned so far are just things that happened to me over the last 30 years, but I'm still making mistakes today. One that I recently made when it comes to CD collecting is deciding that maybe I should get into buying SACDs instead of CDs, and trying to determine if an SACD actually sounds better than a regular CD. I made an entire video about this whole process, and if you'd be interested in watching that, you can do so by clicking here.